Well, history is repeating itself. You have to laugh at this because, these companies have just been responsible for it. And, when you don't respond to certain things and paying out people or the lawsuits that are pending on product, intellectual properties and stuff like that, you get yourself in a world of trouble. And in this case, these are the bullseye is on Disney this time around. And this is going to be similar to a lawsuit that was filed a while back concerning the Friday the 13th series on the intellectual properties. And basically now it's Predator's turn to go through a similar suit. And the thing about it is this lawsuit has been sitting for quite some time now. And the reason we say Disney on there, it's basically now it's in Disney's hands. Originally it was 20th Century Fox, and Fox let it just linger, even though the two gentlemen, Jim and John Thomas, have been trying to fight to get this done, and now everybody wants to try to scramble Disney-wise to get this new movie that they're Predator movie working done before a judge slaps an injunction. This is from a while back, the Hollywood Reporter, but we're hearing some of the articles now, but this is the best out of the articles that you hear, and they always lean back to this particular article. Predator screenwriter suing Disney to recapture rights. Jim and John Thomas say Disney hold on the franchise expires this week. Disney goes to court. Actually, some things have changed on this. Basically, there has been an extension and stuff like that, and it's still ongoing. And basically, the brothers who wrote the 1987 action film Predator has filed a lawsuit against Disney, seeking the confirmation successfully recapturing the rights to the franchise. Meanwhile, Disney's 20th Century unit has filed its own suit against the Thomas brothers with the goal of retaining the rights. Good luck with that, Disney. Good luck with that, because we already saw what happened over at Friday the 13th and how that worked out. The Thomas brothers are seeking to, and it's not an exploit, they're doing by what is within copyright law. Termination provision, which allows the authors to cancel transfers after waiting a period of typically 35 years for newer works. Given the time frame, studios are facing the prospect of losing franchise rights to many icon works from the 1980s. Now, remember, Disney itself changed the copyright laws. They were one of the companies that just changed everything. This is the reason why Mickey Mouse is still in Disney. I mean, if they didn't change the laws, they would have lost the rights to Mickey Mouse, believe it or not. It's possible. You have to remember, when it comes to the copyrights, I mean, it is, if you don't do it right, you're screwed in the end. You know this from George Romero from Night of the Living Dead and all the issues that are still going on to this day for Night of the Living Dead, and some of the issues with Dawn of the Dead as well, as far as the copyrights on there. Predator starred Arnold Schwarzenegger and spawned 3 sequels plus the spin-off series Alien vs. Predator. Reportedly, Disney has been eyeing to reboot with 10 Cloverfield Lane director Dan Trachtenberg at the helm. Such plans by Disney may face an obstacle in the form of termination. According to the complaint, this effectively terminated its set for their screenplay, originally titled Hunters, is April 17th, which that is come and gone. And now we'll switch over from the Hollywood Reports to Pirates and Princess, which basically continues this story. what most sites are looking at with Disney and the new Skulls film in its casting has been leaked. And we know that this is happening. This is what the new film is I believe being called. They're wanting to cast Amber Midthunder as the lead role, which the plot in itself is just incredibly hysterical for this. This is not unexpected on the formula Disney to make sure the lead in the franchise, like Predator, is now a woman, not just any woman. She's a true warrior, true seeker, breaking cultural norms to be the greatest warrior, so a Comanche version of Mulan with predators. Now, this is what's going on currently and what we know on, well, according to this as of May 24th. Okay, a lot of things have changed since then. Now, as far as the lawsuit is going with Jim and John Thomas, it will get them the United States copyrights back if they win, but that doesn't mean the foreign ones will revert. Disney would still have those, but they would have to license it from the brothers for new films or projects. So, in other words, as we're continuing on this, basically what we're looking at is they could gain back the rights in the U.S., but if Disney wants to make any other films after this, they would have to be approved through Jim and John Thomas. But now Disney is fighting them because, of course, they are, and they're trying to claim that they should be able to stall the reversion because the notices weren't valid for the various reasons. Complaints range from copyright numbers being listed wrong to they weren't given the proper 2 years notice, etc. This has been sitting from Fox, okay? All the proper paperwork is done. It's done. And it's been sitting there. Fox neglected to acknowledge the paperwork. So basically it kept going back and forth. The notices were kept being sent. By then, several years have gone by, and then Fox gets sold to Disney. So Disney has to continue this. But they put it aside. And they were like, just like they're putting aside everything else, paying off a lot of the authors and stuff like that. How many more lawsuits from Fox have transposed to Disney that Disney has pushed aside? Now, Disney argues, we're going to argue the termination was invalid. But the lawyers for 20th Century Studio argue that the notice they received had errors rendering invalid. The main error was being noticed that the reference an incorrect copyright number. You know, anything to try to get around this. Apparently, the Hunter script was never registered at the U.S. Copyright Office, which isn't required by law. But the Predator's rewrite script was indeed registered, which was at the point was technically a work for hire, and Predator rewrite copyright number was incorrectly referenced as the Hunter's copyright number in the termination notice. That's minor adjustments that can be done. And any judge will see there it's the same type of script. They second argue the notice was invalid even though the copyright number issues was resolved, of course. But the lawyers for 20th Century Studios argued that the second notice was invalid too, mainly because its termination of June 14, 2022 was under the 2-year required by law from the point of serving the notice. Their legal team also suggests that mentioning the revised Predator screenplay copyright number and the title Predator is an intentional and purposeful invocation of the Predator's name, because the truth is the Thomas brothers can only grant it Hunters. So it's because of this, Disney legal team said that this is a second notice of termination is invalid. When you look at a movie and it's like based on the screenplay of such and such, you do have to pay somebody. As somebody's idea was taken and made into a movie. And they're trying to say, well, you know, it's Hunters is different from Predator, and it's not. Disney, you didn't change anything as of yet. You're going into production with a new movie. That's why you're rushing it, so you could say, well, it's different from Hunters. The date was listed as termination on January 13, 2023. Disney isn't disputing this one because, of course, they aren't. No. They are saying that this notice should be accepted end date and they should get almost 2 years use of the IP. As you see what they're doing. Disney is trying to get to the courts to declare the first 2 termination notices are invalid and rule that to allow the date to be the last one in 2023 to be the new termination date. I'm sure in those 2 years they would do what they usually do and lobby for law changes or look for loopholes to force the rights to stay with them, as they did in the past. Maybe they'll go with their other maneuver, which is to drag it out in court until the person has nothing left to win. Wouldn't do that. Learn from what Friday the 13th went through. So what happens now? There's a court date that it's come and gone. And Jim and John Thomas are trying to get a preliminary injunction to stop Disney from moving forward with the Skulls project, which we are still waiting to hear. So we are at that point with this, that we are in between. We haven't heard anything as of yet. There has been no new judgments or anything like that. I guess paperwork is still flying back and forth. But see, this happens. You know, for those of you who are inspired writers and people going to get into production and broadcast and all that, copyright your stuff. Very simple. Be detailed. Get yourself a copyright lawyer. Plain and simple. Because if your stuff is going to get bought by someone, or if you produce something and it gets bought by a company, they're going to, and it does very well, you know they're going to try to grab the property itself. This is not unheard of with Disney. They've done it before. They've done it with many IPs, especially stuff that's in the public domain. And of course, they'll make many, many changes, as you're already seeing with the synopsis of the new movie that's coming out, which is just basically going to take place during a Native American time period. Don't know how that's going to work with the Predator series. It doesn't sound good. And Disney's always been known to change a lot of things. And if you didn't know, a lot of the famous films that you've known for many decades, stuff like Pinocchio, Little Mermaid, Cinderella, a lot of those movies that you've seen are not the final true ending to these movies, the ending to the stories. You know, a lot of stuff is from Grimm fairy tales and stuff like that. If you've ever seen the movie The Grimm fairy tales and you know what we're talking about, or if you ever read a Grimm fairy tale, a true Grimm fairy tale, you know, they're dark, they're horrifying. The endings are on there. Perfect example, the person who wrote Pinocchio. Pinocchio ends horribly. He gets hung on a tree at the end. He doesn't become a boy. He gets hung on the tree and beaten. It's very, very dark. Sleeping Beauty. She gets impregnated while she's sleeping and has twins. And you say, like, oh my God. Little Mermaid. She dies at the end. She dies and becomes a spirit at the end. You know, she gives up her life. The man in her life marries another woman, a princess. He never really loved her. You know, and these are the stories on there. But Disney changes them and says, "Oh yeah, we got to make it on there." They don't want dark. They don't want dark, even though they have a dark history. If you didn't watch my Saturday pre-flight, take a moment to watch the first half of it. We discussed 2 dark movies they did. Something Wicked This Way Comes and Watch Her in the Woods. Watch Her in the Woods, they changed the ending 1 week after release. Because they were saying that some of the critics didn't like it. 1 week after release. And they changed the ending. When Lifetime did the remake, they went with the second ending. Not with the first, which the first one was like Lovecraftian. It looked great. I mean, the execution of the movie, they didn't do too well. but it's a little bit more plausible, even though they didn't give information on what the creature was, but it would have been more plausible than a bright beam of light. You might as well call it the cocoon. You know? Oh boy. But this is the Disney thing that's going on. The darkness at the Disney Corporation. This is what's going on day in, day out. You know, you have all this. We knew things like this were going to crop up eventually. You know, this has been the Predator's suit has been around for several years now. It's the same thing with the Friday the 13th. Trust me, they're going to use the Friday the 13th defense in there, and they're going to reference that in the court case. Trust me on that. That's what's going to end up in the favor of the Thomas brothers, Jim and John. It's going to be, you know, that's what's going to end up getting it to them. You know, Disney's just going to fight it all the way. It's probably going to be a couple more years. You think they'll get their injunction? Hard to say. If a judge goes sides with it, Skulls is on hold. You saw what happened with Friday the 13th, how much was on hold. The video game kind of ruined the video game in a way, because basically no new content for the video game. And they had a lot of ideas. They had a lot of add-ons they wanted to do. But hey, this is part of the whole world. Like I said, make sure you get yourself a copyright lawyer and copyright your product. Don't let Hollywood take it. So you've come to this part of the video. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, share, and comment below on all of our social media platforms. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye now.